Hello and welcome to another edition of Tax Updates brought to you by Freeman CPA and the Atlanta Business Accountants. I'm Angie Freeman. I'm an IRS enrolled agent, and today I'll be talking to you about something you probably haven't heard about before, or maybe heard very briefly, but that actually applies to you if you're a business owner in the United States. So if you own an LLC or corporation, and that includes single member LLCs that typically file just a Schedule C with their personal tax return. It includes multi-member LLCs that file Form 1065 for their taxes. It includes corporations, including C Corps and S corporations, so Forms 1120, 1120S, and essentially any business entity that was formed by filing with the Secretary of State in their state are now falling under those requirements as long as they're a small business that does not meet certain exceptions, and we can go over those exceptions. If you'd like to leave me a comment and I'll go over the exceptions with you. But one of the big exceptions that you need to be aware of is if you're a company that has more than 20 employees and operates in the United States and had revenues last year and a tax return of over $5 million, then you may be exempt from this requirement. Otherwise, any small business would be required to now file this form. So what is this form? Basically, the FinCEN is trying to crack down on who owns the companies, and they want to know everybody that has any kind of interest in a business entity. For every business entity. So if you have multiple, you'll need to file multiple BOI reports. And you're disclosing their information such as who the company is with the tax ID, who all the owners are, 25% and more owners of the company, but also anybody with management decision-making powers. So a management that can make decisions on behalf of the company would also be required to report there. Now, there are some deadlines to keep in mind. Generally, you have to report this within 30 days. So any companies that are new, that are opened as of January 1, 2024, have normally 30 days to file this BOI report. There is a phase-in that they're talking about, potentially letting the new companies have 90 days initially this year to file before bringing it down to 30 days. And if you're an existing company that were already operating before January 1, 2024, then you have an extra time to file this first initial report. You have until the January 1st of 2025. So you have a whole year to file this report before being considered late. But I wouldn't recommend waiting until the last minute. In addition to that, if there are any changes that are happening after this initial filing, and that includes new address for the business entity, new address for the owner, new owner, change of ownership, or an expired ID for the owner, because you are required to submit your driver license or passport picture with the information in this report. Once it expires, you are required to submit updates within 30 days. Not submitting it will lead you to that $500 a day penalty. Or if it's a willful non-compliance, meaning you knew about the requirement, for example, you watched this video and you knew about this, but you didn't submit the required information in the required time, then it can go criminal, and the penalty would be $10,000 plus potentially spending time in jail. So it's very important. It's very similar to the FBAR requirements, and it's very important that everybody is aware of these and is in compliance. There are going to be services that will be providing the service to submit the information to FinCEN. However, you need to be aware of this requirement to update the information whenever something happens, that's any changes happen. So the company that's filing this for you will not know that you got a new driver license or that you had just moved. So that's going to be really up to the owner to know and to submit the required information to the agency. And this is actually something that many other countries have already been doing. The US has been behind this, and there's been a lot of money laundering type activity that's been happening in the United States because of certain states not requiring the ownership to be disclosed, and some unsavory individuals and businesses were using that to form in those states. So this is designed to weed that out, to basically close out that loophole and bring the US in more compliance with the rest of the Western world as far as the disclosure of the business interests. But again, it's new for the US, and it's something that everybody should be aware of. And just to reiterate, if you're an existing business entity, you have until the end of this year to file this report. The information it will ask you is your business name and ID, the address, all the owner information, including the owner's names, their dates of birth, and their identification number and copy picture of their ID. And also any beneficial owners that don't actually have ownership, but they're defined as having any kind of management decision-making abilities. So there will be an initial filing. It's not an annual form. It's just the initial filing that's due now before the end of the year if you're an existing firm, or you have 30 or 90 days if you're a new firm. Officially, it's 30 days, but there's been some talk about legislating it to make it 90 days. So we've heard both numbers. And once that's been filed, you only need to submit filings if there's an update. A few other things to note is if you have several business entities, you will need to file a report for each separate entity separately and providing all that information again. One way to simplify this would be to request an identification number for yourself personally from FINCEN. And by getting this ID, instead of submitting the copies of your driver license or your passport and submitting all that information with every one of your BOI filings for every business entity that you are involved with, either as an owner or as a manager, managerial decisions, instead of doing that, you can just provide your FINCEN issued ID on those filings. So it'll be a little bit less of the burden of uploading documents versus just submitting your ID number. So that's something that you can do. Otherwise, head over to the BOI website and make sure to file the required forms before the deadlines. Looking out for your interest here at Freeman CPA, Angie Freeman. If you like this content, please don't forget to subscribe and like our video. Thank you.